The Brazilian president, Lula, he's been visiting a few other countries, making official visits, and he was in China. And I believe right now he's meeting with Lavrov, with the Russian foreign minister, and he upset the Americans, during his trip because he said some things that they didn't like. So shall we have a listen to what Mr. Lula has to say?
Avanço no assunto Ucrânia, presidente. Algum passo adiante?
Deixa eu te dizer uma coisa. Eu tenho uma tese que eu já defendi ela com Macron, com Olaf Scholz da
Let me zoom in there so you can maybe read the subtitle a bit better.
Alemanha, com Biden. E ontem discutimos longamente com Xi Jinping. Ou seja, é preciso que se constitua um grupo de países dispostos a encontrar um jeito de fazer a paz. É preciso ter paciência para conversar com o presidente da Rússia, é preciso ter paciência para conversar com o presidente da Ucrânia, mas é preciso, sobretudo, convencer os países que estão fornecendo armas, incentivando a guerra, a pararem. Porque eu acho que quando começa uma briga, a gente fala em guerra, mas poderia ser uma briga de rua, poderia ser uma greve, ou seja, é preciso começar e saber como parar. E muitas vezes a gente não sabe como parar. Eu acho que a China tem um papel muito importante, eu continuo reiterando que a China possivelmente seja o papel mais importante. Agora, outro país importante é os Estados Unidos, ou seja, é preciso que os Estados Unidos pare de incentivar a guerra e comece a falar em paz. É preciso que a União Europeia comece a falar em paz, para a gente poder convencer o Putin e o Zelensky de que a paz interessa a todo mundo e a guerra só está interessando, por enquanto, aos dois.
Oh my God. The disaster, the calamity, the atrocity. Oh, how dare he sue for peace? How dare he demand that the United States, the leader of the free world, actually try to negotiate, a settlement between the Russians and the Ukrainians instead of trying to, make money for the weapons contractors. He really is. This man, this Lula, he really is spreading misinformation with this nonsense. John Kirby, your favorite national security spokesperson and cartoon character, was very upset by what Lula said and called his comments misguided. Now, I think Lula is pretty based, What he's saying is really down to earth and makes sense. And you my friend, my cartoon character friend, you are misguided, I must say. Let me play you and pay attention. He didn't say, "Oh, China is the one who," he was trying to save face on their behalf, because the Chinese are the ones who look good now. The Chinese are hot. They went and made peace between the Saudis and the Iranians. They're hot right now on the world stage. They're fresh. They are envied by everyone, especially the Americans, because the Americans wanted to be the ones who look like the peacemakers, right? Who look like the ones that are, calm, cool, and relaxed and able to get two warring sides to agree. And Bill Clinton with Arafat and Israel. No. In a few months, the Chinese were able to do what nobody else has even tried to do, I think, right? Instead of, making peace between Yemen and Saudis, the Americans sold weapons to the Saudis. And now, instead of making peace between Russia and Ukraine, all you hear about when they get up in the Bundestag, the Reichstag, I mean the Bundestag, they get up and say, "Oh, we should give them these tanks and we should give them this and that." And then they do the same thing in Brussels when they get up, or in Strasbourg when they get up in the EU and they start talking about what they should do for Ukraine. They only talk about weapons. And when they get up in Washington or in Whitehall, they only talk about weapons. When's the last time you saw any of these people actually get up and talk about, hey, how are those negotiations going? When can we get Zelensky and the Russians and all these guys to meet and sit down? I don't remember them ever saying this. I think the last time was a year ago or something like that, right? When they were in Turkey, I think Turkey was trying to, negotiate a settlement between the two and make peace. And that fell through because, our Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, he decided to go to Zelensky and tell him, no, pull out. No peace talks. You know why? Because there's no money in peace. There's no money in peace. I mean, there is actually. They're stupid because the Chinese are making lots of money doing, diplomacy, and with the Belt and Road Initiative, they're going to make lots of money. I'm sure that's not their their only incentive, because they have a completely different mindset, culture, and foreign policy. But you will find that if everybody gets along, it's way more beneficial. But of course, for those people, for a few people, the ones who actually make decisions in Washington, what Lula is saying is it's unconscionable. How can you do something like this? Unconscionable. Let me play his other clip.
Há 50 anos atrás, ninguém acreditava que a China pudesse chegar em 2023 com a potência que a China é. A China é uma potência em quase todas as áreas da atividade econômica. A China é uma potência hoje em ciência, em tecnologia, em produção, e eu acho que engenharia.
And here's the part where you have some bootlicker jumping in. Oh, but the Chinese stole all the technology from us. Oh, we're such victims. All we did was use their people for cheap labor. Oh, really? They stole the technology? How come you have no bullet trains in America? Where are your bullet trains? Where are your railways? What is this, Civil War era bullshit? What about England? Jesus Christ. You're better off renting a private helicopter with these trains. Where's all this amazing technology then? Does it get shared with us? Does it get shared with the public? Nah. You can pay for wars though. They'll take your money for that.
Eu acho que isso é importante para o mundo. Porque o mundo não tem só um lado, a gente não tem que ficar olhando só uma voz ou olha um país. Agora a China aparece no cenário mundial não falando de guerra, mas falando de...
Thank you. I had not seen this part of the clip. That's exactly what I'm telling you, man. What did I say about what he's saying too? What did I say? What did he say? See?
Desenvolvimento, falando de investimento em educação, formando engenheiros, formando bioquímicos, formando médicos, formando engenharia espacial, sabe, competindo, sabe, com aqueles que eram campeões. Sabe, isso é muito importante, isso é saudável para o mundo. É muito saudável. Eu quero te dizer que eu fico satisfeito e prazeroso que a China faça investimento na África e investimento na América Latina.
Yeah, and Iran and Syria. And he, again, you're going to have these bootlickers and these, whatever you want to call them, because there are lots of names, and I'm trying my best not to swear. But you're going to have people jumping in and saying, oh, the Chinese are ripping off the Africans. Like, you remember that clip of the Namibian ambassador putting this, the Namibian president putting this German diplomat in his place? It's like, he said, we don't need you to feel sorry for us. Because they talk about the Africans like they're children, like they don't know how to make their own decisions. They're being taken advantage of and ripped off by these like Chinese villains, these cartoon villains. No, man. Europe, Portugal, okay? I know he's speaking Portuguese, so I went to Portugal for, Portugal, Spain, the Dutch, the British, the French, the Americans. Those countries ripped off Africa and, enslaved Africa and took Africa's resources and are still taking those resources. That is ripping off someone. Ripping off someone to the point that you've stolen so much that even if you wanted to give it back, you couldn't. That's what Europe has done. And then, we have that fucking nerve to accuse China of ripping off the Africans. I mean, you really gotta be some illiterate moron or dishonest as they come to say that. Really, that's something. That's something.
Quando teve a crise em 2008, na primeira reunião que nós tivemos do G20, implícito nos Estados Unidos, a discussão que nós fazíamos é que deveria aproveitar a crise de 2008 e os países ricos fazerem investimento nos países pobres, para que os países pobres tivessem acesso a financiamento, para que pudessem crescer economicamente.
Careful, Lula. The word you don't give the IMF and World Bank any ideas right now. Development, the dollar signs. Development.
Construir pequenas e médias indústrias, melhorar a sua agricultura, sabe? E ser menos dependente do mundo rico. Ninguém fez isso. A China fez. Então a gente não tem que ficar, sabe, com ciúme da China. Sabe, a gente tem que acreditar, sabe, que outros países deveriam fazer o que a China está fazendo. Outros países. Sabe? Porque assim o mundo fica melhor. O mundo fica melhor. Então eu acho que os chineses hoje representam um certo equilíbrio no debate econômico mundial, no avanço científico mundial, sabe? Então isso é importante para o mundo. O que o Brasil quer propor à China é que nós precisamos construir centenas de coisas novas, que passa por rodovia, que passa por ferrovia, que passa por portos, aeroportos, que passa por novas indústrias, que passa por empresas de químicas, que passa por investimentos novos, sobretudo na formação educacional do nosso povo. Por isso que eu penso trabalhar com a China uma troca de informação entre as nossas universidades para que a gente possa ter um trânsito maior de chineses estudando no Brasil e de brasileiros estudando nos chineses.
Yeah. Meanwhile, if you're a student from Jordan or not Jordan, let's say Syria or like Iraq or something, you get detained at the border in the United States, as if you're a terrorist. And then, oh man, I mean, from what Brazil represents on the world stage as a BRICS country, right? Because remember, Brazil, he's of course Lula is going to speak that way about China because he was a founding not just Brazil, a founding member, but Lula at the helm of it when BRICS was created, right? So, this is something that he was involved in from the beginning. But I think a lot of what he says, well, I know that a lot of what he's saying is he means it, and it's true. It's true because when he says China offers a balancing power, it does. And I told you this a few weeks ago when the peace deal was made because, the European model has it's not very friendly. It's like mafia. Now the Chinese, instead of sending their army into some African country or some Arab country or whatever, or Pakistan or whatever, and just stealing the resources, they work out a deal, right? See, how can I help you and you help me, right? But they actually mean it. It's not extortion. It's not ripping somebody off. It's not burying them in mountains of debt like the IMF or something, and then trying to extract gains from that. No. This is like a real deal. If I build you these bridges and then maybe in the future you find these resources, will you give me a tiny percent of that? Fine. And they go and the whole Belt and Road Initiative, this new Silk Road. You remember? Let me explain something. The Silk Road is an actual thing that existed, in ancient times. It was an actual trade route, right? So it goes from China. It starts in China, goes all the way into through Asia to the Middle East, through Syria, and then to Europe. So this is something that actually existed before there was any United States, right? Before Europe was when Europe was a bunch of forests. This is a real thing, right? And I'm not saying, it's the Chinese who were running it. No, but it was something that, they were a part of. It's in their culture and their history. It's a fact. And so what they're trying to do is revive that now, but opening the door to everybody. Everybody can join. If you want to be in the new Silk Road, if you want to be part of, part of the Belt and Road Initiative, you're welcome. China has never said to the United States no. They've never told the Americans or the British or whoever, you're not allowed to join. No, it's open to everybody. But, in the West, because there's an unwillingness and reluctance and stubbornness to accept anything else except our model and our way, we just, the media automatically, they crap on the Chinese and call their model this and that. And it's stupid. It's stupidity. It's shooting yourself in the foot because it's a few people, a tiny clique of idiots in the media and villains who are politicians, and then they poison the whole population's mind, and they screw the entire population out of actual growth and having peace and prosperity, right? And that doesn't mean China's perfect or something, but what they're proposing and the multipolar world that's coming, it's gotta be better than this. I don't know how much better it's gonna be, but it's gotta be better than this. The current system. Look at the current system, man. It's not working for anyone. It's not working for people in global south, and it's not working for average people, working class and middle class in the West. This is not working for anyone. So there has got to be a better way, right? What made me very happy about Syria announcing that it would join the Silk Road is that Syria, especially Palmyra, literally used to be part of the Silk Road. Right? So I like Palmyra is very cool. You have a Roman, you have Roman ruins there as well, not only but as well. You had there used to be a queen here called Zenobia, Queen Zenobia, and we're talking 4,000 years ago. It's actually long. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's more than that, right? Palmyra was actually destroyed and rebuilt twice, and I visited when I was a child, and it's really, really amazing. Here's the Roman theater, excuse me, and unfortunately, ISIS, when they took it, they blew up a bunch of things. So that's very, thank you to everyone who funded those and set those terrorists loose. Well done. Look what you've done. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That's the gate that was blown up by ISIS. It's kind of like the defining. This photo here, this arch is the defining, ruin of Palmyra. When you see that, it's Palmyra, and unfortunately, that's exactly what they blew up, which is very upsetting. And just to show you the old Silk Road, like the Silk Road, the original one, which goes all the way from Shanghai, and then it goes, as I said, through Syria. Yeah, you can see here. Starts in China, goes all the way through Central Asia to West or West Asia, if you will. Iran, Syria, Palmyra's here in the middle, and then it goes up to Aleppo, and then through what is now Turkey, and then you can see here all the way to Italy. And this is, like I said, this is something that has existed since ancient times, and the Chinese are trying to revive this with land and maritime routes. So not just by land, but actually by sea. And you have like over 100 countries that have signed up to this. The most recent were Cuba, Syria, and Iran. Look at the model that's being offered here, and compare that to what, unfortunately, because of a few, a tiny corrupt percentile of angry and bitter and evil people who run, British and American politics. There's no match. There's really no match. And no wonder they're so upset at Lula, right? No wonder they're so upset at Lula, because Lula is not perfect, and neither is this multipolar world. But when your model is dying out and your empire is dying out, you tend to throw tantrums and kick violently. And my fear, and I know we're branching out here a little from what Lula was saying, but when you look at the trend with Ukraine and Russia, I have a fear that the United States is going to use Taiwan to draw China into a conflict. They changed their wording on the State Department website. Okay, that's not enough my list is not done. But they changed their wording of the one China policy. They started sending Nancy Pelosi and then I think Kevin McCarthy. So correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if Kevin McCarthy went. I think he went recently, but Nancy Pelosi for sure, when she was Speaker of the House, which is very significant. And they of course, Taiwan has American weapons, and they've added Australia and the UK to this military alliance, AUKUS. There's a broad strategy here and that American general who was recently saying, we're going to be at war with China in 2 years. I mean, you can see the attitude, right, of actual, actions, real action on the ground, transferring nuclear-powered submarines to Australia, poisoning Australia against China. So I don't know if you guys know this, I've tried to explain this to you before, but in Australia, which, again, Australia and China, I think China is their largest trading partner, and they've turned Australian politicians against China to hate the country, right? Like it's incredible. It's incredible. Like they've really, really poisoned them against them. They need to do this. You know why? Because when the war comes, they're going to need their unsinkable aircraft carrier, which is Australia, right? So it's a joke, of course, but it bears a lot of truth. And they're gonna sacrifice Australia, just to screw with the Chinese, and they'll sacrifice Taiwan as well, which, all of this is sad. It's very sad because the Chinese, you can see they don't have any military bases anywhere. They don't want to get involved with any conflict. They're just like keeping their heads down. They're cool. They're smart. They're focused. They're driven and motivated. And they're making deals, and that's it. They're just trying to mutually beneficial agreements. That's it. And my fear is they're going to be forced, right? The Americans will force their hand. They might do it through Australia. They might do it through Taiwan, but they will force their hand. And unfortunately, this will be bad for everyone because China is a nuclear, is a nuclear armed country. They have nuclear weapons. They've had nuclear weapons for many, 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 many decades, and they're already trying to poison you against them, right? Oh, Chinese spyware, as if American tech companies, they don't spy on you. No, the NSA and all that stuff. You that was a dream. And all these sanctions that they're putting on China too, because the Americans are afraid. You saw what Lula was mentioning. He mentioned how the Chinese are investing in other countries, and they're investing in which sectors. Let's develop more weapons. No, let's develop science. Let's focus on engineering. Let's focus on building bridges, trains. Things that actually benefit people. Infrastructure. What's going on here is that they're being punished for this. Having good phones. And people wanting to buy Huawei phones. Oh no, we can't have that. Let's put sanctions on Huawei. Oh no, people want to use TikTok. Let's enact a second Patriot Act. And let's call TikTok dangerous, but we still want to buy it. Remember, Trump is like basically saying, "I'll ban TikTok unless you sell to an American company," in which case it's fine. Yeah. Right, hand over the number 1 app on the on the App Store. Very funny, like blackmail, And they kidnapped, dude. They extradited the Canadians. They arrested and were going to extradite one of the top brass at Huawei. I forget her name. I can't forget if she was CTO, not the CEO, maybe the CFO or CTO. And then the Chinese were basically they forced their hand, and I think it's terrible and it's not nice, but the Americans are opening the door to this, and the Chinese, they ended up putting 2 Canadians on death row, and only then the Canadians let her go. She works at a tech company, but she's so valuable. Huawei is so valuable that they're kidnapping her and giving her over to the Americans, because the Americans wanted to extradite her, and then China backed down when the Canadians let her go. So this is another theme that worries me, because I've talked about this with David Mendoza here on the show, that when the Americans start kidnapping people and using their State Department and Department of Justice to expand U.S. laws to other countries, like the Assange case or like Mendoza's case, then other countries are going to look at this and they're going to respond in kind. And so then you have the Russians, for example, giving these big sentences because they want to get their prisoners back from the Americans, So I'm talking about Viktor Bout. I'm talking about Yushchenko. In those cases, for example, that this is what happens because of the Americans' behavior. They open Pandora's box, and then everybody starts acting crazy just to keep up and defend themselves. This is very bad. This is very, very bad. And with the Huawei woman, she was I forget if she was very high up in Huawei, and they wanted to extradite her to the United States. They basically forced the Chinese to put a Canadian on death row. This is insane. I mean, I don't think those two things are equal, but it was basically enough to wake the Canadians up and realize like this is wrong, and suddenly magically they let her go. She didn't do anything, right? It's just the Americans wanted her, so they thought, oh, we'll grab her and deliver her next door. Really sick stuff. Meng Wanzhou. Right, Wang Manzhu. So she was the CFO. I knew it was either CTO or CFO. She was the chief financial officer of Huawei. That's her. Yeah. I'll show you her picture very quickly. And this is an example that Mendoza had brought up, and very, very, very good and compelling example. That's her. So the Canadians basically arrested her because the Americans wanted her, and they were going to extradite her. And then, like I said, Meng Wanzhou, the chief financial officer at Huawei. So why did I talk about this in Huawei? Because Huawei is an example of how the Chinese are being punished for being good. Like having good phones, oh, we're going to accuse them of spyware. We're going to sanction their stuff. We're going to kidnap their staff. This is insane. Can you imagine the CFO of Apple being kidnapped next door to China because the Chinese want them? This is wild. This is insane. Can you imagine Tim Cook being arrested and because the Chinese want him like over? This is wild. People would, their heads would explode on every channel. MSNBC, fuck. It's unconscionable. How can you do this? But apparently it's okay when we do it. I don't think most people even know this happened because they bury their heads in the sand. So just going back to Palmyra, not only did the ISIS destroy this, and remember this is an original part of the Silk Road, but there's a museum there, and I remember this museum very distinctly. And unfortunately, they trashed the museum and they executed the head of the museum, the director, because he had hidden the most precious artifacts. He'd hidden them away, and when he refused to give them over, they killed him and hung him, or hanged him, excuse me. And it's really really disgusting behavior. But you ask yourself, where did these guys come from? Who gave them these weapons? You know the answer. Turkey, Israel, Saudi Arabia, the United States, the same gang, right? So very disappointing. But I think the new Silk Road and that future is going to be very bright. And, Lula is obviously not perfect. No one is saying that at all. It's irrelevant. But what he's saying here about China, he's right. And like I told you, the Saudis are even waking up and saying, oh, we need to switch. We need to maybe cut our losses with Yemen, pull out of that, make peace with everybody, with Iran, with Syria, with Yemen, and let's look eastward. Because this is what the war in Ukraine has triggered, The things that are happening now are crazy, It's not just the war that obviously, which is very tragic and crazy, but the ripple effect, the other consequences that this has had globally, man, it's really really incredible how fast we're transitioning to this multipolar world. And that doesn't mean tomorrow morning, no, but it's faster. It's definitely faster. That's without question. And it does. I really want you to understand. This doesn't mean the Chinese are going to be controlling something or running something. That's not the point of this. The point of this is, if you look at the ancient Silk Road, is that everybody benefits. It's a worldwide thing, right? That's the point that I think Lula was trying to make, and his comments about an alternative model, very smart. And just going back to Ukraine, because in this video here, he talked about how the United States needs to stop arming Ukraine. I mean, this is what's so offensive about this? Yeah. Okay, that's common sense. It's there's nothing controversial about this. What's controversial? Arming one side and trying to make money from it. That is controversial. That is upsetting. And that is what America and Britain are doing. BAE Systems, Raytheon. That's what they're doing. These British companies and American companies are making a killing. Literally making a killing. You even got some Israeli guy in Canada building Jeeps. Huh. Yeah, he's making money, isn't he? Because the Canadian government buy them and then give them for free, quote unquote, as aid to the Ukrainians. Tons and tons of weapons manufacturers and other contractors are making a killing, literally, off of the war in Ukraine. And the West need to stop arming the Ukrainians and actually pressure the Russians. If you really want to put pressure on the Russians, you make them sue for peace, man. You put pressure on them for peace. This is not achieving anything. It's been going on for over a year. Okay, fine. The Russians are wrong and everything they're doing in Ukraine is wrong. Fine. How do you fix that? Your method doesn't work. You're killing more people by making this war go on and by prolonging this war and making it go on for longer. You are killing more Ukrainians. You are keeping the Russians in Ukraine longer. Why don't you get them out by actually suing for peace? No, we got to make money. How can people take this take this position seriously? and Lula like being controversial, misguided. No, you're misguided, my friend. Sorry.